Okay, for those of you that are watching the recording, we did some intros and just had a little bit of discussion on cataloging that we can continue if we need to, but otherwise, this is the Consortia Special Interest Group. It is exciting to see a lot of new faces. We usually have a few more familiar faces, but they've been replaced with some new people. I would love to, well, Elizabeth, I don't think you mentioned where you're from. Do you mind introducing yourself?
From the Plum Creek Library System with Joel.
Cool. And Joel, if you want to introduce yourself or not, that's fine too. So I guess, we usually keep these meetings pretty open, and since we have a library that is migrating soon, and one that's just migrated, I'm just curious what other issues you're facing. Jason's been on Community Koha forever. We migrated to Community Koha from a forked version, so similar but also not as developed, and that was in February 2019. But yeah, our consortium, Jason's is a little bit more like probably yours. Our consortium is weird because we have all sorts of different types of libraries, and we're massive, not in record numbers, but just in branches. And so it's usually our job to try to break Koha as best as we possibly can by putting it to its limits. So what questions do you have? What challenges are you facing?
I guess I think the biggest challenge is like so many different things happening at once, and you're trying to like adjust to, the differences and different SQL. So the same functions that you used to be using are not working anymore. So you have to look at different documentation and just kind of like being able to manage all the tickets and stay sane at the same time.
No, I hear you. When we migrated from something very similar. It was basically an earlier version of Koha with just a few different features. So you would think it would be, oh, this is going to be super smooth. But I remember that first week. I was like answering tickets that were coming in like one every 5 minutes, something like that. We just got flooded with that. And that was, I don't know how long of I know we talked when you were considering this, but I don't remember when that was. But we had like a year-long migration. So we took our time and we still had just a flood of stuff going on, but it does settle down. So for the Ocean State people who may be frightened right now, it does calm down after that initial where everybody kind of wakes up and goes like, oh, things are different. I know our libraries are a little like, they were very passive during the process of migration, didn't do a lot of testing, didn't have a lot of input, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh, things are different. We've woken up. So that was part of the reason why we had such a flood of tickets coming in.
I think it's already settling down a little bit, but sometimes it seems like we migrated on the 27th of February. We started the whole process in September, but because we're a tourist destination, we always have to make any changes before the summer months. And I think, there was a lot of training. I offered a lot of training. We recorded things and offered them to staff. But like you mentioned, it was a little bit laid back until we actually switched on the 27th. And since then, I'm glad you mentioned, well, I gather from your comment, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, that even if you have a full year or 2 years, things come to light after you migrate. We thought we were really well prepared, but there's been a huge amount of work for our network staff since migration. And I had said to our membership, our real work will start, not that the other was not real work, but our real work will start after we migrate. And they were like, really? But this is my second migration. And I hope my last.
Yeah.
It's been a learning curve, but it has also energized us, I think, and energized the libraries to have a new system where they know the potential is just fantastic.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Yeah, I totally agree. You never can prepare for everything because you don't know what you know until you can try to anticipate certain things, but until you're in the middle of it in a live environment, you just don't know how everything's going to come together and what questions are going to come up, and what stuff you thought was going to work that just like sputters, and then you gotta dig into it. So you just scramble for a bit. But yeah, I mean, once I know for us, like a couple months in, we had all the stuff that wasn't working back online and working the way it was supposed to, and questions really just started to go off a cliff because people were starting to get used to it and understand stuff and figure out stuff themselves. So that was definitely our experience. I'm curious, did you do any developments as part as coming over, stuff that you needed to see in the system? And that's for both Clams and Ocean State. I'm kind of curious what you required to bring in.
We did. There was one huge development that was a deal breaker, whether we would go with Koha and Aspen or not. We have a delivery system within the state, and they do this thing called sort to light, where they don't have to. So it's free to us from the state, but you don't have to put items in envelopes or anything anymore. They just magically scan the item if the barcode is on the front of the item, and it knew where to go in Sierra. So they did that development at no cost for us. And Brandon, was there anything else they did? I can't remember.
I don't think it was done specifically for us, but it was the item scope, so that you can't edit items unless it's your home library, something like that.
Cataloging.
But that was already in development before we got in, but that was a big deal for us, I think.
I think there was an iteration of that earlier that was something that we asked for all the way back in 2019, because yeah, we don't want our libraries editing each other's stuff for sure.
Oddly enough,
I think the way that it is it's backported to us on 2022-05, and it will be released in the next one that's coming out.
Yeah, they can do that, which is interesting, which we appreciated. They, what do you call it, Brendan, backported it, where it wasn't officially released, but they gave it to us because it was a big concern. But interestingly enough, in circulation, they can still edit items to a degree. But in cataloging, they're blocked from editing each other's items. But in Circ, I have to get to the bottom of it, but I think they can actually do some damage in there, but I could be wrong. We're eagerly awaiting the templates, so maybe Ocean State could talk a bit about that. We had templates in Sierra. I'm not sure they'll work for us because cataloging needs a lot of development, in my opinion. We haven't got that yet.
Yeah, so I don't know if it was being developed for us initially, but I don't know if they're called item frameworks or item templates, but basically being able to pre-populate item records with specific fields based on whatever library is adding them. I don't remember if that was something that they started working on because we said it had to be done, or if our requirement was that it was done by the time we went live. I can't remember which of those.
you had maybe asked for that. We had asked for that previously, and we had a quote, but they hadn't done any work on it. But then I know somebody came in and said, we want to go with that. So I think we're paying part of the tab on that one, or maybe you all funded it. I can't remember, but I know that was something we were very interested in as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I wasn't really a part of that like negotiation part of it, so I'm not sure exactly the details on that, but I know that it was definitely something that said that we were like, we have to have this because we have
Yeah.
I think we have about 70 locations. All of them except for one are public libraries, but they all have very specific different things that they do in their item records, and you know, too many things to add and not enough staff. So the templates are really time saving.
Yeah.
Another thing was the item groupings. I think that was already in place, but not necessarily on the release that we were going to be going live on. So I think that they're at least making that available in the version that we're going to have, but we have not been shown, like item groupings is not available in our sandbox, and neither are item templates. So I have no idea how those are going to work. We are currently doing a ton of data cleanup based on visual, like just looking at things visually in Aspen, the way that they were showing up. Like we're a Sierra library now, and the public catalog formatting is shown based on the material type in the bib record, but in Aspen, everything comes from the item records, right? So we have items where like multiple libraries just decide that it's something different. And so now records are showing up where the format is 3 different types. Like sometimes it was a DVD and it was showing up as a book and a kit because some library decided that the I code they wanted to use, like they just wanted to use a different I code for themselves, not thinking that it made any difference. And so we're doing just like nonstop lists of, hey, here are discrepancies, please go in and fix your items. And then we have like 2 different libraries saying, no, this should be this, no, this should be this. And so that's a lot of the prep that I'm working on, is cleaning up all of that stuff, and also trying to standardize our item records. The volume fields are all over the place, and so I know that they're going to be turned into item groups when we migrate. But you know, we'll have one record where one person will put 2023 and another will put 2023 edition, and another will put 2023 first edition. And so they're all technically the same version, but they're not described the same way depending on what library did it. So we know that those are all going to create separate item groups.
I don't really understand what item groups are, but I don't want to take up the whole meeting. So maybe you could email me.
Well, did you guys use volume records in Sierra?
No. We
Okay,
didn't.
so it's the same thing as volume records in Sierra. So it's like a level between a bib and an item that allows you to place bib level holds on issues instead of having to place like item specific holds on everything that has a volume field. It kind of grouped everything by volume, and you could place a bib record, a bib hold on those.
Wow. Because they were able to accommodate, we use the serials module in Sierra.
Oh yeah, so we don't.
We support, I mean, we support so much with the small staff. I mean, we do acquisitions, we do serials, we do everything. So they were able to work something out, but I can't remember exactly how. We didn't use the volume product equals dollars in Sierra. We just put in a volume field in the item record to say, you know, People Magazine issue, blah, blah, whatever. So they were able to accommodate item requests on those specific serial issues or, you know, parts of a DVD. I must look into that actually, but we didn't have that's an extra complication that Ocean State has, that they have the volume records. But we have a whole list of developments we'd like to see done, and we're not going to be able to pay for all of them. So what's the best way? I mean, we have specific cataloging developments that we would love to get buy-in from other consortia to fund with Bywater. It seems to me that it's all or very little with the cataloging permissions in Koha, and we have that intermediate level.
So
where we
I
want the
just,
libraries to be able to do a certain amount, but not touch the authority file, for instance. So they've given us a workaround by using the fast add framework. But we'd like to give libraries access to a framework for each, you know, for a DVD, for a book, blah, blah, blah. So that middle part of permissions is missing. So we'd love to cooperate and co-fund something, you know, developments in cataloging if anyone's interested.
so
We
I
definitely are.
put a link to the devs page for Bywater Solutions, and that would be my recommendation: is get a quote, have them get that up there. So not only can people see a fully described spec, development spec, they can see the cost of it and how much it has been already put towards that. That's just the best way to do that. For koha-US, what we're going to be doing going forward, before, what we would do is we would have people submit developments to us and then vote on them, and we're going to do one more cycle of that. But then going forward, we're going to just use this because it's such a clear representation of the developments that are out there. So we our organization does fund developments too. So another way, if you're not a member, that's another way that you can please join koha-US. That membership money does go to things like developments that you would then have a vote on. But we're going to be using that page as to kind of go through that. The other thing I would say about developments is we've both done this with a recent koha-US development that needed a little extra work on, because we went with an outside firm that was outside of the main of Koha, and they wrote kind of sloppy code that didn't get, even though the thing did this thing it said it would do, it didn't actually get accepted. It didn't pass the QA quality assurance process in the Koha community. So we've actually been working with a company called Catalyst out of New Zealand, and Bywater is so busy migrating large libraries like yours, large groups like yours, and a lot of the development is going to that initial, like, we're meeting requirements, that they're not, I'll be very honest, they're not moving fast, and they'll admit the same to you on the stuff going forward. So the beautiful thing about being in the Koha world is that you do have other options, and they've also recommended to me PTFS Europe. So for some of these developments, even if you get it up on that devs page, that doesn't mean you can't get a quote from Catalyst, get a quote from PTFS Europe, and they can move faster on stuff than what Bywater currently has the capacity to do. So there are some good options.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
And then I'll be quiet because I'm taking up too much time. Is there any way for us to see, you mentioned that group, the US development thing, which we'll have to join. How do we see what developments are sponsored by that group?
Do we have a list, Jason?
Yeah, I think it's just, let me get the link. I will say it's not an extensive list.
No, it's not like
been a
we
struggle.
have tons and tons of money, but we do try to give back in this way.
So if you go to that page on the koha-US.org website, along the right side, you can see the completed development we got was customizing account lines. And then the one that's kind of in limbo is this message deletion in the OPAC that Bob was talking about. That should be.
It's just
pretty
waiting to
soon.
pass a final round of QA, and then it should be scheduled for a future release.
Because we're being told that this workflow is kind of unique to us, which I find hard to believe, that the libraries enter brief records and they need that.
I've heard of that.
We do the same thing. We do
Yeah,
exactly the same
I
thing.
mean, well, I'm glad you're with us then. The thing is, we don't have a lot of money. We're
Mhm.
we're 35 libraries, 38 locations, but half those libraries are what we call association libraries, where even for their operating budgets, they have to fundraise. So it's not like the 35 libraries are municipal. So, you know, because they're underfunded disgracefully, it means, you know, we're getting paid from them. So
Yeah.
but I did set aside some money from development in the budget for every year for developments, so that I wouldn't, because another network found, and they dropped out of open source because of this. They found for every development they had to go to their membership to get approval for each development. And I mean, I'll still have to get approval from the board and buy-in because we're spending their money, but I did set aside a certain amount for development every year, which was good advice I got from Bywater initially.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that we wouldn't have to go cap in hand every
Yeah.
time we need a little thing. But at the same time, the list of developments is so long that we have to prioritize. And the cataloging one is huge to us, but sometimes it's hard to explain that to membership because they're not catalogers. So, you know, if there was something already there worded like what we have, it would be really what we want. It would be great.
So what I would say with all this stuff is that start with that devs page because it's great to get the thing on there so people can see it and adjust. But come to the koha-US general meeting, come to this meeting, go to the special interest group meetings and have those discussions. That's a great way to build support. Use the Bywater listserv, you know, once you get something up on the devs webpage, because you never know who might do it. The other thing I'll say is we are seeing more and more consortia that are moving to Koha. So there is going to be more money. We are probably, even though more similar to you in what we have for our membership is not made. I mean, we have basically one library that keeps it afloat with like grants and bake sales and a lot of volunteers. They have one paid staff, and that's the director. So yeah, we're kind of in a similar situation with that, but there is a lot of those opportunities to partner and stuff. And you will find that in some cases that you are using stuff in unique ways, like the way that our consortium does holds is a ridiculous, messed up thing that I can't get the toothpaste back in the tube on, and that causes lots of trouble. When I went out and said, like, surely you all want this fixed, everybody was like, why would you do it that way? You know, so sometimes you get that, but I think as we see more consortia come on, there's going to be more opportunities to make those partnerships. And then instead of paying $5,000 for a development, you're chipping in 500 or 1,000 and it's still getting funded.
Yeah, we have two island libraries. Not only have we got the Cape, where we have the outer Cape, which is like a day trip, like Provincetown, way out there, but we have Martha's Vineyard. We have 6 libraries on Martha's Vineyard and 1 on Nantucket. So I hear you about holes, because what we want for Martha's Vineyard is they have their own delivery system on the island between the libraries, which the rest of us don't have. But we want a hold page at, we'll say Chilmark, and then if they don't have it, we want the hold page at Vineyard Haven. you know, instead of going to the mainland. So it was one of the things they said they could do, but I'm not sure we have it set up correctly with the delivery matrix and the holes.
Yeah, the cost transport matrix.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
I can never remember the name of that cost transport matrix.
Jason's our resident expert on that one.
Oh, Jason, we will be in touch.
We don't use it because we're far too complicated to make that work. So we just have it randomly assigned. And I mean, that does create problems. We don't have islands in Colorado, obviously, but there are mountain ranges and there are isolated communities that don't get the same level of courier service that others get. So it does create some inequities there. So it would be nice to have a easier way to dial things a little bit more. And that would be something we would be interested in, but it's just too unwieldy to use that particular tool for us.
Well, it's not something we had in Sierra, but it's something we asked for probably for 10 years from Innovative. And I understood from Bywater that they would be able to do something like that. And in fairness, we're probably so unfamiliar with the system that maybe that is there and we just haven't figured it out.
I would expect
explaining.
Yeah, I would expect it would take some trial and error to kind of get that dialed in the way you need to, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely took some work for us, and we don't have islands either, and we don't even have mountains here in Kansas. So ours is sort of calculating on, do they get 5-day-a-week courier service? Do they get 3-day-a-week courier service? And then we've got 4 different courier hubs in our system. So I've factored that into the calculation so that like the libraries next to each other should be filling each other's holds for the most part. It's sort of like a five-tiered system is how I've got it set up, where like we here at the central office are filling the most holds because we have the staff to do that. And then beyond that, it's relative to each other. Each library is relative to another library is how much it costs to send the item there. And that impacts the holds queue. So like it's going to stick on our holds queue until we fill it or mark it missing. Likewise, if it's between 2 libraries that are close to each other and they can't find it, then we mark it missing. It's going to move after that. So it trickles down a little bit. And I'm happy to share what our setup looks like if that helps you at all.
Thank you. That would be great. We also have it like Falmouth has like a branch within a branch. They have a location called the Children's Library, which is on a different floor. And I'm sorry, my dogs have started. So we want the item paged at the main library. They also have an East and North branch. So, you know, they like to loan out their own items for their own town statistics. So even within Falmouth, we wanted paged at the kids section, which is really a branch within a branch. So yeah, it's complex and we don't really know what we're doing. So that would be great.
Any other questions or concerns? I think I'm going to bring up something that Lauren, who is actually running an international consortium, but is not supported, which is kind of an interesting setup. She had a question that I have no idea to the answer to, and you may not, but I did say we would talk about it. So she was wondering if people use the system preferences use control number and easy analytical records. They use it at the same time, but it's causing some issues with their journals. Now, we don't have journals, so I definitely don't do that. And I don't know, Jason, do you have any clue? Yeah, that was my concern with bringing this up, is I thought we might have more publicly oriented consortia at this meeting today, so we wouldn't be of much help on that one. So I said I'd bring it up, but does anybody use journals at all? I mean, you might have community colleges, sometimes they have that stuff, but
Well, we use periodicals. I'm not sure what you mean by journals. You mean bound journals?
I'm not sure what they mean exactly, what she means by that either. We'll probably advise Lauren to maybe email and try to see if we can the community and see if she can get an answer that way, because I think it's a little outside of our purview. It would be similar to like magazines, I suppose, but I don't know. The way we do magazines is we don't use the serials module, except for we actually have a group of prison libraries that's on a separate server for security reasons. And they're trying to, but they're finding the serials module is a little inflexible. So it does some cool things where you can do a prediction pattern. So once you program everything, it's supposed to be easy, but the way magazines are released now is they'll do a double issue and then they'll skip an issue like randomly. So it just creates a little bit of havoc with that particular rigid prediction pattern. But all of our other libraries just add items to a record that they own, is how we do that.
That's what we're doing, and we still haven't had, but some of them, like our college library and a couple of the bigger publics, want to use the serials module. So we're still waiting for training on that, where we can put in patterns and stuff, subscriptions patterns.
Yeah.
We haven't even had training on that yet.
If you find that that's, a pain, I know that we're probably looking at some developments there as well. So that I'd be curious to see how your experience goes with that.
Yeah, I'll let you know. But we're trying to nail down a date with them, and they're working obviously with other consortia to bring them on, so they're busy. But one thing we do have experienced, and we've reported it, and I know there's a bug, when libraries go to add a serials item to a bib record, it's so slow.
Because the amount of items on it.
Yeah, so what we've done with the weeklies is we had Annika at, I probably shouldn't mention names, we had Bywater support create separate records. We had all our serial records on one record for all years, unless it obviously necessitated a separate serial record for whatever reason. But we asked her to split out the weeklies, where we have a separate bib record for the 2023 weeklies. And we were told that if the bib record had over 500 items, it was really, really slow. Well, the other day we had one that wasn't a weekly with 87 items, and the director at the library said you could probably go off and make a cup of tea while you were waiting to add an item. So it's extremely slow, and there is a bug. So I guess the more of us that keep feedback on that, the quicker it will be fixed. But
keep reporting that stuff. It's also the same happens with holds. Like if you have records that have lots of items, it takes longer to place a hold. So it's a little extra long for us because we use some nonsense called branch transfer limits that I won't go into great detail of because it's a horrific mess, but that's part of how we're managing everybody having their fun, unique circuit hold rules, is we have to basically have this giant grid where you say this library can lend to this library on this item type, that sort of thing. That's part of the reason why ours is a little slower, but I know from talking to the people at Montgomery County, which is a pretty sizable consortia, they are also experiencing some of those issues. So a lot of that has to do with how that data gets loaded every time you put it up. So I know that Nick in particular has been working on some different ways to load things faster, so it doesn't go through that long period where it checks all these different things and then loads the data, and then that's why it's slowing things up. So But yeah, I would say keep on. We continue to push on that on our end, and keeping on pushing on that is good, because I do think, particularly as they continue to add consortia, they do need to have that performance upgraded. So it's good for all of us.
I mean, I don't consider 87 items for a consortium to be a huge, big deal. I understand the 500 items. But to have the thing sitting there, I don't know. I just overall, I'm sorry, Ocean State. I don't mean to scare you. These are minor, well, not minor, but they're little things that we're finding. And, you know, we're a small consortium, but we're noisy, we're opinionated, we're New Englanders. So, you know, even drawing up, even searching for a patron record in circulation, like you're sitting there just looking at the thing. It's slow. So I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah, we were warned from another library who had records that had like 300 items, that it was really slow. And that was pretty scary for us, because we have records with 3,000 items attached.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because we don't use the serials module. All of our periodicals are attached just as item records, like anything else, which, I mean, maybe that's the same thing as it work in serials, I don't know. But all our records are just like each issue is added. And we have a lot of libraries that have like historical collections. So they have Life all the way back to the beginning, National Geographic all the way back to the beginning, and every item, every issue is barcoded and has an item record. And we have, when we first started doing the volume field or the volume record transition of like combining the same issue onto one volume record, we noticed that once we got to about, I forget if it was like 500 or 1,000 volume records, that it started to be really slow. So we started breaking out our bib records into like year ranges for each. So we have like time from 1993 to 1997 or something, but even those still have thousands of items.
Yeah.
And that is something that is pretty concerning, because we have a very heavily used periodical collection in the whole consortium.
Yeah, we do too, because it's important for circulation, and the libraries that go to the bother of barcoding, you know, they get circulation statistics from these things. So it's, and then, you know, circulation equals support and money in our state. So yeah, I mean, we broke out the weeklies, but I'm beginning to think unless they fix this pretty soon, we're going to have to break out the monthlies too.
I'll just add that this is historically an issue. It's been an issue for us since the beginning, and like we've just kind of rolled with it moving forward. And we're doing the same thing that you mentioned, Miranda, where it's like a year, and also a library gets its own record. So the Iowa has a people record for 2019 to 2020, and that's it. And then like, but our periodicals aren't used extensively at all. And we also, like, we don't allow item level holds at all. So like if the patron wants to put a hold on that, they have to go through staff. But yeah, it's been an issue. It's still an issue. It would be nice to have those speed enhancements. I will say that things are like way better than they used to be speed wise. So like it does get better over time, but you do have to be a squeaky wheel about these things. Otherwise they get left to the side. And like for us, we just started working around it. So like we stopped squeaking about it, and that's why it's still a problem for you guys coming up. And I feel a little guilty there, but that's kind of how we've been over the years.
No, it's our turn to come in and make some noise.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad other people are making noise, because, you know, we don't want them to hate us.
We've submitted so many development requests already.
So have we. And, you know, we've been told, well, yeah, you may have to pay for it. But the thing is, if other consortia are interested in going with koha, I think it's supported by Bywater or the other one. It's in their interest maybe to, I mean, I don't fully understand the funding of developments, but you would think it would be in their interest to add some of these developments at no cost to us.
Yeah.
But, you know, because if somebody comes to me for a reference, I'm going to be honest with my experience. Overall, I think it's a great system. I'm very gung-ho about it, but I do think there's, you know, possibly it's where we're hosted. Brandon knows more about this, but it could possibly be
like
how
part
we're
of the
hosted.
I think like part of the issue is just like it's a limitation of the browser. You can't have a web page with so many DOM elements load at the same time. So like I just looked because I was curious about it, but I found like a National Geographic, like we have our 2023 records broken out. So I checked the one that's like 2003 to 2022, and it has 682 records on it. So I think partially, maybe one way of speeding it up, just like yourself, is maybe if you don't show, do you need to show all of those columns when the thing first loads? Because if you just limit the number of columns, you can have way less DOM elements right away, probably. I don't know, but like when I just like checked, and it's like 22,000 DOM elements on this page. So of course it's going to be slow. How can you have to load it in, it has to be broken into separate records or some other way paginated. Because I think you're only supposed to have like 1,000 DOM elements on a page.
Well, there's no question of us having separate serial records for each library. I mean, I just, you know, so I don't know what the solution is, but is everyone here hosted by Bywater, or are you self-hosted? I'm interested to know. Anyone self-hosted?
Yeah, I think Lauren is probably, there's definitely individual libraries and a fair amount that are self-hosted, but other than Lauren's consortia, I don't know of another consortia that's self-hosted that I'm aware of.
And I would never want to go back. Yeah, I would never want to go back to self-hosted ever.
No,
but,
it's good to be hosted.
Yes, it's wonderful. And I will say, you know, a more simplistic thing than what Brandon mentioned, but we have moved from a client to a web-based system. So I know when we did that for OCLC, it was considerably slower.
Yeah, I do think that as far as the Bywater piece of this, there's an evolution, and I know they've definitely pursued and been successful more with Consortia in the last few years, right, Jason? That's amped up quite a bit. So it's going to take a bit to have the infrastructure. I can tell you that they definitely have been hiring a lot more on that side, so they're keeping up with that, but they will need to be building more infrastructure as far as figuring out how to make things work faster. That's just part of it. I do think it will happen. That's why like when I have the opportunity to talk to you with my experience with the Clams group, I was more than happy to do that, because you know, you come on, you say I need these things, that's just another voice that's saying that. They prioritize that a little bit higher, stuff gets done, and that's how it should work. So I think we're in a, you know, there might be some growing pains because we're seeing such a big glut of consortia coming in, but long term, I'm pretty excited about where things are going.
Yeah, me too. And thank you, Bob. I meant to acknowledge that for talking with us, you know,
absolutely,
we signed on the dotted line. That was much appreciated. But yeah, I'm excited about this. Sometimes our members say to us, well, are you sorry yet that you moved? I'm like, no, absolutely not, because I'm excited about the potential of open source. And we love Aspen. I don't know whether everyone else here is on Aspen.
Not Jason, but we're using it.
Yeah, compared to what we had, it's just amazing. We love it.
Yeah, that's really good. And that's evolving at an even quicker rate. But I will say, just because we were on that forked version of Koha, it was like we were just light years behind. The improvements that are made with those two big upgrades, over time, it's really amazing how fast Koha is evolving. And I just don't think I don't know enough about Evergreen to know enough about that, but compared to proprietary models, it's just moving much faster and it's community driven. So that just gives me so much more excitement to be part of the process. That's, why I'm doing this meeting here and all that, and part of koha-US, because it's kind of fun to actually have a say in what it's going to look like and how it's going to operate and how you're going to make it work for you. What I mentioned, our Department of Corrections libraries, that's really because there's no library system designed for prison libraries. Just doesn't exist, and they have really unique needs. And I'm actually going to be in DC at Computers and Libraries next week doing a presentation on it, just because it's just like fascinating. But we couldn't do this stuff without open source and being able to leverage all the different community stuff that's already in there, but then go and work with a company like Catalyst in New Zealand and have them cooperate with Bywater, where pretty soon we're going to be testing a new development that they've been working on. It's just an awesome environment. So that's my here's your Kool-Aid pitch for the day. Got a couple more minutes. Any other thoughts that people want to bring to this discussion before we close it out? Oh, I did want to mention, because you were talking, Miranda, about all the cleanup you're going to have to do. I do like the merge feature, and we use it a lot. So once the data is migrated, there's a lot of ways where you can just do a title search for something and then see all the records that should be merged and pretty quickly merge them, and then move fields if you want to move some fields over to make a real good composite record. We do that a lot because we have libraries. Always seems like we're migrating new libraries in, and their data often is coming from a small library that hasn't had consistent cataloging practices and hasn't been on a shared system. So it's not exposed in the same way as it is when you're part of a group.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, we have all the stuff you described. We regularly, when we migrate a library, and we have that, so then we go in and we can do a lot of merges and fixing stuff and quickly improving those records that way.
That's good to know. We're sort of started talking about, right now we do a lot of merging of, it's not so much for the same reasons that you had, but we have a lot of libraries that order and do like the vendor records, like download the MARC records from their vendors and load them, and we have it match on ISBN. And so if they ordered the paperback and we only had the hardcover, it'll create a new record. And and then anything that gets like reprinted a million times, we have like classic edition records for Great Expectations, where you just attach your item, and we don't need to have a new bib record for that. But we also do like travel guides and test books and stuff, merging those into one. And we were kind of talking about how much merging we might need to still do with the Aspen grouping. Like if all of the bib records are kind of roll up into one bib or one record showing record group, still learning terminology, but if they're all kind of going into one record group in Aspen, and a patron could just place a hold on like the set,
Yeah.
how much merging of bid records are we gonna have to do? So that's something that we're thinking we'll just figure out once we get in there and go live and not spend too much time on it now, but it's good to know that merging is pretty easy if we still keep doing that.
Yeah, with Aspen, if your title is good, you're probably going to get that record grouping connect well. So as long as there's not like typos in the title or they put in some weird information, which
Mhm.
definitely happens. But
Yeah,
if the title is good, then it generally is smart enough to group that and hide that mess really nicely.
mhm.
Because there's obviously some stuff that you don't want to merge because it's different editions. We look at like when we do our like Tom Sawyer, like we have like I think 180 like bibs on that. And they're like, there's so many different editions. You can't just go and sweep them up all into one, but then it just like shows real nicely in Aspen Cat, and then in Aspen Cat is my yeah, they name Aspen and Aspen Cat, and that's a point of confusion. So apologies there. But yeah, on Aspen, it's really cleans up that type of mess in a really nice way. But there is a point where you can have such bad data that even that can't save you.
Yeah,
I wanted to say also, Miranda, you might want to reach out to Michelle because I think she did a lot of the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that she did was in Sierra, our item types were kind of like, they were kind of like the item type and collection code. So like we had like many extra ones. So she like simplified. So going into Koha, we have fewer item types because we broke out that into the collection code piece.
okay.
And
Yeah,
I think that
yeah,
doing
did a
that
huge cleanup.
was the
Yeah.
key to
Yeah.
making the loan rules easier to manage.
Yeah.
okay.
I definitely recommend
Yeah.
not a lot of item types if you can get away with it.
And
We
we
have-
actually, yeah, we had the opposite issue, Miranda. Instead of merging bibs, we have express copies, and the libraries don't want to have those on hold. So Michelle will be able to tell you more about it, but she's on vacation this week. But the copy cataloger had to ask for not a merge, but the opposite, to unmerge the express version, so that they wouldn't have. But,
Interesting.
So
yeah.
you can do that with item type too. We do like a new item type for various things, and then we set up in the tools, there's an automatic modification by age. So you can say like, we only want it to be new for this long. After 3 months, then it turns from that new item to book, and then it automatically follows those new rules. That's been a really great setup.
Oh, that sounds interesting. If we could get consensus on it.
I mean, you could still trust me, we don't have consensus. Everybody's got their, some are like, we're doing 6 months, and some are like 1 month, and then we'll end it. And a couple libraries aren't doing the new thing at all, which they should, because if anybody's doing it, you should keep your stuff.
So
Should
Bob, you
either
can
lend
do it
everything or
library-
not.
Can
Go
you
ahead.
do it library by library then?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, I have to hop off because I have another meeting.
Okay,
to go
yeah,
to.
we're
Thank
going a
you.
little long, but feel free to reach out to me on that one or anything, and good luck with arriving in Koha and coming to Koha soon. I do recommend getting involved with koha-US. This has been a great discussion, and hope to see you at future meetings.
Thank you.
Thank you.